Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Maria. I'm a workshop coordinator, and I welcome you to the first of four our joint workshop with the Right Livelihood Foundation. The first one is going to be with Vladimir Slivyak, and the next four with different human rights defenders who were Livelihood Laureates in different years. Thank you for joining again. If you are interested and if you have any questions, you can write them in the chat and we will answer them later. And I hope you will enjoy this event and I hope you will enjoy the presentation. You're free to interrupt or say something about your own experience. And for now, I will give the floor to Alma, our alumna from Bosnia and Herzegovina and independent researcher in the field of ecology. Other people are joining. And then we will go to the presentation and then you will be able to discuss everything that you have heard. Alma, please.
Thank you, Maria, and thank you for the opportunity also to participate in this new program for all human rights alumni. As I understand, also I will say I have a pleasure to introduce Vladimir, who will share his extensive knowledge on, I think, very valuable topics that will be presented today, especially how you can successfully do campaigning. Let's say some very useful tips, at least from what I had a glimpse into his presentation. So Vladimir is one of Russia's most committed and knowledgeable environmentalists who has been spearheading important grassroots campaigns against environmentally damaging practices for decades. He has stopped projects related to the exploitation of fossil fuels, also the use of nuclear power, and something that we also can relate here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the shipment of radioactive waste from abroad. Although we will have, hopefully not, but nuclear waste landfill on the border on Bosnia and Herzegovina River Una. Vladimir is co-chairman and co-founder of Ecodefense, one of Russia's leading environmental organization. And I would say from this work, I would single out that this was the first environmental group in Russia to start an anti-coal campaign in 2013, which is very significant. When we talk about his experience, and also I would say sharing his knowledge and expertise within other groups in Russia. This resulted in rapid growth of anti-coal protest in various parts of Russia, which is also interesting to see how you can also work within such societies. In recent years, he and his organization unfortunately have been targeted by Russian authorities for their work. However, he didn't lose his will to still fight and to support also growing influence of young climate activists. He is still standing with them and he's committed to sharing in a cleaner and more sustainable future for Russia and for the world. And also before we start, as Maria said, just pose your questions or comments in the chat and then we will have discussion a bit later. Vladimir, floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Alma. That was very nice. Okay, so I was asked to do a relatively short introduction on campaigning or advocacy, as you like. I mean, first of all, I want to say, unfortunately, campaigning is more complicated than 15 or 20 minutes speech by anyone, not only me. So, I mean, I would give you, well, let's say a bit of advices how you do it if you ever decide to do something like that. But then I hope you make a lot of questions and we can talk further about how how to succeed in a good campaigning and everything. So unfortunately, you will not become an expert on campaigning after my speech because it's too short, but I hope that you will learn something useful, and in case you ever decide to do campaigning yourself as a profession, it will be successful. Well, hopefully. Let me start my presentation. Okay, so first of all, I want to say each campaign is very unique. I mean, there is no similar campaigns around the world. Each of those would have a very different details in it, but still, during campaigning, we have something in common. We have some rules that needs to be followed in order to do a campaign in a more successful way. And first of all, I want to say that basically the goal of any campaign is some kind of a change. I mean, we're doing campaigns not because we just love to do it, because although some of us love to do campaigns, but we do campaigns not because we love to do this, but because we need a change. We can see that something is wrong in the world, something wrong is about to happen, and we want to stop it. Or at the same time, we see that something good is not advancing fast enough and we need to speed it up. Those are the cases in very general when we do campaigning. And well, first of all, good campaign is a smart campaign. It's achievable, it's measurable. I mean, in terms of a result, it's time-bound, and it's good when it's part of a broader agenda. What I mean by that is that when you planning your campaign in the beginning, it doesn't matter what exactly is that. You're planning campaign for a change. Your goal must be achievable. First of all, in your own view. I mean, it's not very good to start campaign when you think like, well, I need to campaign on this for certain reasons, but it's not achievable. That's not a good way to go. I mean, other people, they might think that what you're doing is not achievable, but you yourself should definitely think that if you decide to start campaign, there must be an achievable goal. This goal must be measurable, or the result of campaign must be measurable. What I mean by that is that when you reach your result, it should be 100% clear that this is your result. I mean, like, well, to give you a little bit of illustration on this, I mean, let's pretend we are people who doing educational project with schools or universities, doesn't matter. And some people come to us and say like, hey guys, what are you trying to achieve? What's your goal? And if we respond them, well, we're trying to achieve situation that will happen in 50 years from now, when people we educate today will take power around the world and they will change the world in 50 years because we educated them today, that is not measurable. I mean, it's as a goal or as a result, it's just not measurable, and that's why it's bad. I mean, the good would be to say, in order to make your result measurable, you say that the group you're educating with your project will be asked after your education, and there will be some kind of a document created with the answers of those people, and from those answers you can clearly understand how much improved the level of education. That is something measurable. That is something that's showing what exactly you achieved by But talking about like we will achieve something in 100 years from now or 50 years from now, well, I mean, it might sound very good to some people, but it's not really a measurable thing. It's good when a campaign time-bound, which means that when you plan a campaign, you understand clearly how long will it take. Although not every campaign has its time limit. I mean, especially when we go on like local level with real grassroots groups, they like to campaign against, well, some kind of a new project of I don't know, some power plant, let's say. Let's say you are in a village and the authorities decided to build a coal power plant near your village. And you decide that whatever it takes, doesn't matter how long, doesn't matter what it takes from us, we're going to campaign against it and we're going to stop it. That happens, but it's not very good when there is no time bound. I mean, it's good to at least presume how much time, how long will be the time that you need to stop this coal power plant or to do something else. I mean, I'm not only talking about environmental issues. I mean, it could be also human rights issue. Let's say, in terms of a campaign on human rights. Well, let's say we are organizing campaign to promote a new law on human rights on a national level. It's going to be basically the same thing. I mean, we also need to understand how long we think it will take. It will help us to understand what kind of resources we need, how many people we need, what these people need to do. I mean, that gives a structure to the campaign and a better understanding. And I mean, like, also important to understand that, well, usually during campaign, there is some collective of people. It's not just one person or two persons. And I mean, it's very important to keep this collective of people interested and involved. And if there is a time-bound campaign and its result or goal achievable and measurable and everything, then people will be more interested and will be more involved. But if you decide to run campaign like forever until you reach some kind of a global goal, which is not clear if you ever will reach, people at some point, people might start to leave you because they will not see a result. I mean, if it's going on for like, I mean, 2 years, 3 years, 4 or 5 years, and there is still not result, and you just keep on telling them, oh, let's go. I mean, there is so great goal. We need to achieve it. Doesn't matter how it takes. Well, at some point, people will start to leave you, and you will not be able or capable to continue your campaign. It's also very important that the issue you're working on or issue you're campaigning on is part of a broader agenda. Well, let's say you are a climate activist and you need to stop fossil fuel funding from different banks or governmental banks or private banks, doesn't matter. You want to stop funding for fossil fuel projects. And I mean, in a part of a broader agenda here, I mean that you start a campaign in specific bank, which is funding oil, coal, and gas companies, basically fossil fuel projects. And let's say you win this campaign, and then you can go on other banks to campaign, or you can do like a broader campaign of yourself that will be on a larger scale. So that is always good. It makes campaign look very interesting or more interesting to other people and your potential volunteers or new people who can come to work with you. Here is pictures from our campaign that we did back in 2005, 2009. That was 4 years long. and that was opposed to the import of radioactive waste to Russia from Germany. Well, it was in a way time-bound because we decided to do this campaign in 2005, and we established a lot of connections with German groups, and we started protesting activities both in Germany and in Russia. And from a source, we knew that the current contracts between Russian and German company that's doing this transportation of radioactive waste, that their contracts will be over in 4 years. So our main goal was to put as much pressure as possible on those nuclear campaigns. So at least by the year of 2009, they feel so much pressure that they decide not to extend their contract and not to send radioactive waste from Germany to Russia anymore. And this is what we achieved. By the year of 2009, on both sides, nuclear companies said, we are not going to continue with it, we are fine. Although we knew that for both sides, it's kind of a profitable activity, but we succeeded to put enough pressure to stop it. When you plan a campaign, it's very important to think about your strategy and your tactics. And here is a few advices I can give you. I mean, of course, as an activist who are working for common good, who want to improve the world, cause a good change in the world, for us, I mean, we always want to stop the all evil that we can see. But what's very important thing strategically for the campaign is to identify your specific target. Using like one of the previous examples I mentioned, like we want to stop funding for fossil fuel projects around the world. But if we start to protest against all fossil fuel projects around the world, we will not achieve anything. What we need to do is to choose our specific target, which could be either specific company doing bad project right now, let's sell coal power plant, or a specific bank that is funding this activity. I mean, the target must be very specific and very concrete. It's very important that from the beginning you count your resources and you understand how much you can achieve, how much money you have, how many people you can hire for this money. I mean, if you don't have money, then you start to brainstorm and think about where to get it. Because, I mean, good organizer of a campaign is not the one who's got all the resources in the world. There are no people like that. The good campaigner is the person who can clearly identify what kind of resources he or she needs, and then put enough effort to get those resources, and then knowing possibly where to get those resources. And it should be funds, it should be people, and a bunch of other things. But it's very important that when you at least have some of resources, that you count carefully, and you don't spend on the things that you cannot spend, or that you can avoid, basically, and you spend your resources only on the important things. And it's good to focus on one campaign at a time. No, I mean, if you are a global organizations with hundreds of people and millions of dollars budget, then you can probably do a few campaigns at the same time. But in most of the cases, I mean, we are not millionaires and we don't have hundreds of people. So, I mean, we have to carefully choose where we can win in a certain period of time and invest our resources in this thing. I mean, it's also very important to think right in the beginning, already think about what could happen if you win or lose your campaign. Would it be possible to continue, and in which way? Like, let's say you're campaigning against the bank that is giving money for coal power plants. And after you win this campaign and this bank said, okay, I'm stopping to give money to coal companies, not anymore. I mean, you might decide that you can well, you can work with this result further, which means I mean, you did campaign on the one bank, but now you can do campaign on several other banks. You can just, with your result from a previous campaign, you can contact other banks, you can go to them, and you will tell them, hey, this bank already said that it will not fund coal anymore. How about you? You also need to do this. Otherwise, we're going to put pressure on you. That could be good continuation of a campaign and, you know, on a bigger scale. I mean, sometimes it's possible also to lose campaign, but still have somewhere else to go. No, I mean, still having another campaign after you losing the first one. I mean, I can recall we did a campaign about 20 years ago against Russian oil company Lukoil, and that was prepared to start first oil drilling in the Baltic Sea. And we did kind of big international campaign against them, asking different banks to not give them money and everything, and doing protests on the street. And unfortunately, we didn't achieve the main goal, which was to stop oil drilling or to prevent oil drilling in the sea. But we achieved a bunch of other things. We achieved like establishing of a foundation where money could be used in case of oil spills. The money can be used for liquidation, or we achieved. I mean, we put enough pressure on the company, and it started to pay for space monitoring of oil spills and a bunch of other things. And I mean, there was some certain result of this campaign. We didn't achieve the main goal, but like other goals we did achieve. And with these other goals, we could go actually to other companies and telling them they should introduce the same thing. And they should also go the same way as the first company did, the Lukoil, also introduce the space monitoring and other things. I mean, it's important to understand that your campaign, if it's really important campaign, if it's really like can change something, then the issue you're campaigning on will resonate with your audience. And also it's important to understand that there is always context that you're working in. And this context is changing. What I mean by when issue resonates with audience, it means that, you know, when you go to your audience and talk to people, they understand what you're talking about and they understand the importance of it. If that is not the case, then you have additional goal, which is to educate your audience, because there are cases like you understand that something is very important, but people do not really understand it. And then you have, first of all, you have to run some educational activities for your audience to tell them what, you know, to make them understand the issue you're working on. And, you know, and then if you're successful, you get the support from them. I mean, what I mean by context that we work in, and the context that is always changing, I mean, we're all following news, right? Every day or from time to time. And if we do campaign on an important issue, there would be news coming from time to time, or maybe even every day. News will be coming on the issue you're working on, and you have to keep track of it. You have to know what's happening around the world, or you have to know what's happening related to your issue or your campaign. And that is very important to understand, because, you know, if you miss important information, then, well, it might actually lead to canceling of your campaign at some point. And another important thing to realize is that even if you do like the really important campaign on a really great issue, and you know, and you think that everybody should understand and it's pretty clear, still media in public opinion might not always support you. It happens quite frequently. I mean, the same, our campaign, sorry, our campaign against oil drilling in the Baltic Sea, it was, I mean, the oil drilling was planned right opposite to the national park, which is UNESCO World Heritage Site. And in the natural conditions of this place, if oil spill would happen, then the UNESCO World Heritage Site might be dead just within a couple of days if there would be huge oil spill. I mean, that means that it would be just heavily polluted by oil. It would be very hard to remove this oil. So the ecosystem would just die for a very long period of time. And we thought, well, it's obvious. We don't have to talk to anyone about it. People should understand it. But still, media in the public opinion did not support us for us 100% for an obvious reason, because we were fighting way big oil company, and this oil companies was also working with media in the public opinion, and a lot of people were just sort of afraid to raise their voice in support of us, because they saw so many publications saying that we are bad people, not the Lukoil company, but activists are bad people who are trying to make an economic damage. And a lot of people saw the coverage in the newspapers and the TV and the radio like every day. And people just were afraid in some way to support us. And that's why, you know, in the end, we had kind of a picture where, you know, a lot of publications that were negative about us, and a lot of people who listen to the media start to think the way media tells them to think. And this is what will happen. Well, if you are running campaign against powerful enemy, like the very big company or a hostile government or a dictator in some place, I mean, something like that will happen to you for sure. Here is a few pictures from our campaign, which was quite successful. That was between 2009 and 2013. We've been fighting the nuclear power plant, which was under construction in the region of Kaliningrad. That's a Russian region on the coast of the Baltic Sea. It's actually inside of European Union. It's an exclave between Lithuania and Poland. It's located on the coast. And Russian fascist dictator Vladimir Putin wanted to put nuclear power plant there, not because the region needed electricity, but because he wanted to organize dependence in the neighboring countries on Russian energy and then use it in a political way. So we did campaign against nuclear power plant, this nuclear power plant, and we won. In 2013, the construction was stopped, and it stopped until today. It's not completed. Well, the situation we had during this campaign was that a lot of media were putting negative publicity about us and our campaigns. A lot of media have been saying that we are foreign spies and some kind of, you know, foreign agents. And after we won, a Russian government declared us a foreign agent. We became a first environmental group in Russia that was declared by government a foreign agent. Which was a pretty bad thing to, well, unfortunately, and it had a lot of consequences. But still, I mean, people who were involved in this campaign later said that even if we became a foreign agent, even if we had so many troubles after this campaign with the government, it was worth it. I mean, we stopped like really bad thing. In last slide with, I mean, I was putting some kind of hints here. And the things I wanted to mention to you. I mean, when you start a campaign, especially if it's on some kind of a spatial issue, it's very useful to create a report that is describing situation on this issue. I mean, then during all your campaign in the future, you will be able to refer to this document, and always when people will come and start and ask you, you know, what you're campaigning on, what's the problem, what kind of issue, you can always refer them to a specific document which clearly describe, you know, why you are opposed to certain thing or why you promote certain thing. That's a very useful thing to do. I mean, media support is extremely important. I mean, there are cases when media are not supporting you for a reason that they are controlled by some kind of dictator, like Vladimir Putin, for example. Still, you should always try to get media on your side. And I mean, you should like really never stop never stop putting an effort into getting media on your side, because I mean there are many examples of campaigns that failed for a very simple reason, because they were not able to get the media support, especially from a big media. Another hint, which is very important, when you campaign against some kind of opponent, it doesn't matter whether it's bank or a company or a government. I mean, you should always try to get a reaction from them. It's very bad situation when you do a lot of things, you criticize someone, and you don't get any reaction from your opponents. I mean, you know, try to go to the places where your opponents are or speaking or present, and ask them something, I don't know, record what they say, put it on social media, something like that. But I mean, it's always good when the reaction from your opponent in the information field and available to other people and to you, opposite to the situation when opponent just ignores you. Another hint, it's very important to build alliances. You might be surprised, but a lot of people starting campaigns refuse to build alliances with somebody else, which is very, very bad strategy and tactics. Alliances allow you to involve more resources to your campaign. It allows you to, you know, to use less of your own resources and more of the resources of somebody else. I mean, well, let's say on the local level, when you campaign, you need alliances. Well, for a reason that more organizations or people involved in your campaign, more people standing on your side, the better you look. That means that, you know, you've got a lot of support. Like, for example, when we did campaign against Baltic nuclear power plant in Kaliningrad region, we had from the very beginning an alliance with fishermen trade unions, who said that they support us for a reason that they believe if nuclear power plant will be built in Kaliningrad, then it could affect fishermen. Another thing is what is very important to understand about campaign. Well, a campaign is a number of different activities you conduct at the same time or one after another. It's well planned, it's over a certain period of time, but there must be internal dynamics in your campaign. Let's say that the pressure you're putting on opponents must be growing. You know, that means that, well, I mean, a couple of other hints that left here are also basically about the same thing, that you should talk first, and only if your opponent ignores you or refuse to listen to you, then you go for an action like on the street, or then you go to increase your pressure. But first you should talk. First, you should never ever start a campaign with the biggest possible action that you can organize. And it's also important to understand that like one of the instruments the grassroots groups use is a direct action. Well, let's say, what is direct action? Is some kind of activity that directly affect your opponent. Like, let's say, if you campaign against bank or a company that's doing fossil fuel business, which is bad for climate, the direct action campaign in this case could be go and block the entrances to the office of a company or bank. And why is that direct action? Is because you prevent the employees of this bank or company to enter the office and do the bad job of, developing coal power plant or funding coal power plant. So you prevent their bad action. That's why it's direct action on your side. But this thing needs to go only when you used like everything else. When you already talked to them, when you already, did a press conference, or you did softer actions, the direct action is the most powerful thing you've got. Use it very wisely. So, I mean, yeah, so it's again about that the pressure must be growing. I mean, and there were a lot of campaigns around the world where people thought like, oh, we're gonna start with the most important, the strongest action we can organize, and then our opponents will be afraid of us, and then they will do what we want. So people go to organize, I don't know, 10,000 people rally or a demonstration. But this is really bad approach, because what happens if your opponents will not be scared by your action? Sooner or later, you will not be capable to organize such a big action anymore, and the people will just not come to your action anymore, because they will understand, well, we did all we could, but there was no result. And since there were no results, I will not invest my energy in this thing anymore. I will go and do something more effective. This is what you have to avoid. And here's last slide in my presentation, and this last slide is about campaign we're doing right now, and it's in Germany. We campaigning against a Russian nuclear company, Rosatom, that is trying to get into nuclear fuel production chain in Europe through Germany. And this issue is right now on the agenda of the German government. They're discussing it, and we campaigning together with German groups, mostly in Germany, to stop this, to put the pressure on the German government so they refuse to give permission to Russian nuclear company to work in Germany and be involved in the production of nuclear fuel. I mean, if you Google this in the news, you will definitely get a lot of coverage either in German and some in English as well, and some in Russian. That was pretty much it. Thank you very much, and I hope you got a lot of questions for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Vladimir. Does anyone have any questions? Maybe for now. If not, I will. Oh, please.
I do have a question. First of all, thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting, and I would love to know how you get in contact with the media. Do you foster relationships with journalists from every media that you have around that local area or national area, or do you email directly to the chain or enterprise? Like, how do you approach that? Thank you.
Well, it doesn't I mean, it's not different on national level or local level. Well, I mean, on the local level in some region, you have not that many media as you have in a country capital or some kind of a big city. I mean, you do very simple things. You prepare good information on the issue you're working. You send it out to media. I mean, you go on their website, you collect their contacts through the websites. You prepare good information, and I mean, you've got to keep watching the world news or area news, and when you feel like your information somehow resonate with the news that's coming on this day, well, try to send your press release on the issue to different media. I mean, if it's a big city, then there would be places where reporters are going to hang out. There could be reporters clubs or something, and you could try to go there and get in touch with people there and say, I'm an activist, I'm doing this and this and this thing. And if they listen to you, you would get an opportunity to introduce yourself and your issue and maybe get some of them interested when they hang out. Because I mean, every journalist is kind of a person that is curious. You know, they like new information when this information is interesting. Then in the cities, even in relatively small cities, you would have some kind of usual place for press conferences. Look up where government goes to give press conferences, or where companies going to give press conferences, or where other non-governmental organizations doing press conferences. And I mean, it's good to organize press conference officially when there is a certain reason for it, because then press conference place will invite reporters by themselves. And always in such case, or I mean, if there is no place like this and you're living in, like, I don't know, small town, and there is no place for a press conference, then organize press conference in your office or organize it in a park. I mean, especially if you work on issues of saving trees or something, I mean, or come up with something interesting, then collect contact information on the websites of the newspapers, and then send them announcement that you are going to give a press conference on this issue at this time at this place, and see how many of them come. I mean, of course, if nothing is happening on the trees in your city, and you're going to talk about saving trees, that not that many people will come. But if you do this like the next day after local government announced it will cut another 100 of trees in the center of the city, in this case, a lot of reporters might come. And do not always put your telephone and email on the announcement, so if they get interested, they know how to contact you. And also, it's important to understand that sometimes you're sending out press release to the media and you get no reaction back. It doesn't mean that they didn't read it. It doesn't mean that it's not useless. It only means that at this certain day, reporters are busy with something else. But maybe in a few days from now, they will get some world news that will be related to what you said in the press release. And in a week from your press release, they might call you and ask for your comments, you know. And the more you get to media, more comments you get to media, more other reporters see your comments, and also try to call you if your comment is good. Those are the hints.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I think we should give the floor to Alma, who is our alumni discussant, and she will reflect on Vladimir's thoughts, and then we will go back to the questions.
Thank you, Maria. And please just post the questions in the chat. We will get to all of you, back to all of you. I will just I will try to add something on this great lecture. I think Vladimir covered like all the aspects, mostly all the aspects of the campaigning in such a short period, as he said. But I will try to compare some experiences and some differences also to tell you, like when we started, or at least when I started with this campaign for the protection of rivers in Bosnia and Herzegovina, and mostly against construction of small hydropower plants like 15 years ago, we were also portrayed as enemies of the state, that we are against the development, that we will destroy small communities and so on. So first, what we done were mostly defensive actions, because we were literal grassroots activists without, I would say, professional knowledge on campaigning and so on. And we saw that we cannot act like that. We cannot always be in this defensive mood and go around Bosnia and like defend every river that there is, and there are many of them. So also we included a lot of segments of campaigning, but I would also say sometimes we do campaign in segments. No, we have one big goal, and then we would take segments of this struggle and put it in a campaigning. For example, we wanted to change laws, but we could do this only in a federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. It couldn't be done on the territory of whole Bosnia and Herzegovina because of differences in political systems. Then we took like just that segment and do it as a campaign. But let's go to these, let's say, more interesting experiences. I would also share something regarding the media. When you are facing this media blockade, as we call it, then we tend to do some creative actions. And let's say even provoke media reaction. To be able to do that, you need to recognize the momentum. If it's something like politically interesting to different political party, for example, than the one that is on power, at least these were experiences in Bosnia and Herzegovina, then they will start to argue, and then we will have a space either to comment something that is related to our case or to different policies. Also creative actions, as I said, we tried to make, for example, before for the protection of one local park here in Sarajevo, we made this small anti-election campaign, we call it, but it was anti-election and funny because we wanted to get informed people and educate them. As Vladimir said, sometimes you need to inform and educate the people you are working with, that the people that are now on election lists and that were before in the council, that they sold the park that citizens were fighting for. So sometimes you even need to go into these details, and then this was widely shared, and then media couldn't ignore it also. Or when you recognize momentum, once we had this, they wanted to destroy one installation of one beautiful piece of art in this park, Kastahana, and they sent like people to destroy it, to smash it literally in pieces. And our neighbors sent us pictures, and like in 10 minutes, 10 of us were in front of that piece of art, trying to protect it with our own bodies. We invited immediately all the media we had, because we already prepared the lists and everything. And we invited artists to help us in this struggle for this art, for this installation. And then this also couldn't be, at least in local media scene in Sarajevo, it couldn't be removed from the agenda. But unfortunately, when we were speaking about being resource-wise in this struggle for the park, we didn't include like potential that COVID-19, that we will have COVID-19, and this like almost totally destroyed all of our efforts in previous 4 years struggle, because our government took public resources and made a media campaign against its citizens to portray them as junkies, as people that are, again, against development and so on. And we were in this blockade, and there were, how to say, also this situation with COVID-19, we couldn't invite people in the streets or work with people or do any other action. And then we found resources to even, we played the same game, we buy media space. Like we found resources to finance the space in the media. But this was the bottom line. This was something that we didn't want to do in previous actions. But when it's coming to make this kind of decision, you know, you will lose 4 years of struggle and you will lose part because of these sudden situations we were. Then you need also to take some strategical measures that you were not in favor maybe at the start of the struggle. So also regarding the media, there is this also interesting, let's say, way of how to include them. You can do media tours, but this is something for, let's say, more developed organizations, as Vladimir said, who have more resources, more fundings, but it can be also done. I would say for some local stuff, you invite media and then you go on a tour with them regarding certain questions. This was done in Bosnia and Herzegovina, for example, regarding Corridor 5C. This is big highway that is being constructed for, I don't know, maybe 20 years now. A lot of corruption is involved in this case and so on. So this was useful because it's a long project. It goes around Bosnia and Herzegovina. It has different problems within, so media tour was one of the good tools to use. Also, I liked your tip on the to have a report, what we have in this struggle for this small park, because it was packed with actions, you know, because it's so on the local and you are working with the citizens, and the park tends to have a lot of attention of wider public also. Then we kind of made this plan with all action and activities like in a timeline that we used. So this was very good because after we started this struggle back in 2017, so this is 2024. So you will forget, trust me, what you were doing and how things develop. And it's good to keep this timeline of actions and everything you've done, because it will help you to develop strategies better in the next steps of the struggles. Provoke your opponents. Yeah, that one is good. Sometimes we need to do that, especially I would say if this is kind of something you do on local level, where local MPs and local city council is involved, then this is also easy to do. Then you can go even to their political programs and find their something that they promise to their citizens, and this can be really good use, but you need to prepare in advance, and you need to have like 2 potential scenarios what to say if they go in one or the other direction. But this requires certain analytical skills. Use all available resources before going to direct action. Unfortunately, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we had so many cases where we had first direct action because citizens were not informed on time, and then it was like the project is starting, they are demolishing the river in front of their houses. So the only way that they could do was direct action. But after that, we start to use all available legally recognized mechanisms of direct participation of citizens in decision making. So citizen initiative was a good tool. I will not go now into details. Maybe you can read about citizen initiative for the protection of water and against privatization on the level of European Union. As a human rights scholars, this is very good case to see how this mechanism is functioning on, let's say, supranational level. And then you can see also what you have in your local in your states, because this is very useful mechanism. And also Aarhus Convention proved to be very good, at least in Bosnia and Herzegovina. It was ratified back, I think, in 2005, and we managed to get even court cases based on these conventions. So sometimes even things that we say, human rights, conventions, it can play, but you need to use them wisely, and you need to use all of this together. This is just one part of the campaign, I would say, and one part of the struggle was to have parallel legal struggles in all of our cases. Make alliances, like you will maybe while making alliances, you will go first to your neighborhood. This was great for defense of our park, because in our neighborhood we find legal support, we found people that are working for the media, we found like actors that became part of our group that were able to produce any kind of content for the media or for social media campaigning. Yes, we were using a lot of social media to promote our campaigns for Hastahana Park, also for Kruščica, and because of alliances, for example, in this Kruščica village where the women were heavily beaten up because they stood on one bridge and protected their rivers. Their river, they got support from the people, from the groups on social media, from the Serbia, and then their case, like one of their actions, because of this support, because these groups tend to have tens of thousands of people, even algorithms couldn't push aside their case because it was shared widely, and then our media needed to report on it. You know, because even when they don't want, sometimes they need to, because other medias will share all of the content. Let's say, I will just, before I stop, I would like to know, Vladimir, maybe after all of the questions of the participants, if you can share with us what was the main challenge in all of these struggles that you mentioned. And I know it's hard to campaign against, like, coal, against energy sector, which is full of money. Let's say we have a lot of problems with energy sector and even green transition now in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we are seeing from the European Union as a periphery and as a state that needs to give all of its resources for the green transition. And this is now where we had alliances before. Now we have even, we are facing a certain confrontation, because Bosnia and Herzegovina is a state that is on the European Union path. So also I wanted to give you a bit of this, and yeah, main challenges or something that was personally very challenging to you within the struggles.
So the question is, what was the most challenging? I don't know, a lot of different things. I mean, well, the model that we been choosing for our organization is to take up the most challenging things. So nearly every campaign that we've been doing been pretty much challenging. And I mean, I would say, in my opinion, campaigning against nuclear was one of the most challenging things. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's easy to campaign against fossil fuel or something, but I mean, at least in my country, I think the nuclear was probably the hardest one among all other energy industries. And I mean, I mean, internally in the organization, I think the most challenging for our people was actually a campaign against oil drilling in the Baltic Sea, because that was for the first time when I saw how big negative media attention an organization can affect activists, even if they are experienced, even if they've been in many situations, but especially if activists are young, and somebody is just running against you like negative publicity every day. That is very challenging. I mean, it's not good for young people. It's not like every activist is capable of standing this. And I mean, people can break psychologically if they, I mean, even if they good activists and been in many places, and even if they, they know that they're doing right things, still it's very hard to read bad things about yourself in the newspaper every day. And I mean, that's why it's actually, especially if you do campaign that is related to, I mean, there are some campaigns that are not so much a fighting. I mean, like if you're promoting renewable source of energy, it could be complicated, but it's not about stopping something, it's about promoting something. And promoting something good is easier psychologically to do than opposing to some big evil. Like fighting some big evil like the government or company, I think it's very challenging by itself, and we need, I mean, if you do campaign like that, we really take care of how people feel themselves psychologically. And I mean, because they need support, you know. There was a question about social media. I mean, we do promote campaigns when we need it through social media, but I wouldn't say, I mean, I think that, no, social media are very important in our days, absolutely. But at the same time, I see people like, people put too much hope into social media. There is the whole the whole kind of organizations that saying that like campaigning on the social media will change the world, and they investing a lot of efforts into it. Well, in my experience, it doesn't work. I mean, social media could be good to mobilize more people to take part in your action. That's possible, but you also have to put a lot of resources into this mobilization, and it's just different resources. I mean, in one case you have to go, I mean, if you campaign against something in your city and you need to mobilize people for demonstration, I mean, you can go the one way of advertising it on social media, and calling for people to join, and you would have to invest one type of resources into it. But you could also go on the street, you could print the leaflets and placards, and you can go around the city and put it on the walls. And it will also attract people this way, but you would have to spend other type of resources on this. I think, I mean, it's impossible to understand that social media cannot really change anything by itself. It can help you, it's true, but it cannot solve the problem. And it's impossible to do effective campaign only through social media. So, I mean, for me, it was always like, I'm looking at my resources, and I'm seeing what I have and what I can spend on a certain campaign mobilization. You know, if I have resources in the social media field and I don't have other resources, then I would, of course, go for a social media thing. But if I have like a lot of volunteers that really needs to do something because they want to do something for this campaign, then, you know, if I have to think about what kind of work and more work to give to volunteers, I would likely be focused on giving to these people leaflets and sending them to the city to inform others and talk to others and put leaflets to people's hands, or do both if I have enough resources for this.
Yes, that's my comment. I wanted to say that like I thought about social media because you were saying about that ordinary media, like classic media, they not always want to collaborate with activists and they don't want to write about activists, maybe because they owned by the government or by that companies against whom you are campaigning. And social media might be an alternative place that at least in the most countries doesn't have censorship and can be free. But you were right that we can do both if we have resources and work both with social media and with activists and promotion on the streets, and maybe with some media who are still on our side and want to work with activists and write about them. It's just a comment. We are running out of time, and maybe some last questions if someone has it. Maybe comments. Yes, please.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Eleonora, a current student in the European Human Rights Master. And I hope you can hear me because my internet connection is a little bit unstable. Okay, so first of all, thank you, Vladimir and Anna, for talking to us today, and most importantly, for the work that you've been doing. I'm very much interested into the issue, let's say, of the relation with media. And my question is maybe a little bit provocative in the sense that, does that relation really need to be positive? And I ask this question because I'm thinking about like those climate activists, like I think Extinction Rebellion, who are like gluing themselves to pieces of art or like throwing paint on them. And these actions, I would say, at least in Italy, they divide society very much. And of course, these, let's say, activists can be seen under a very negative light, I would say. But on the other hand, it's also true that, again, I'm speaking mostly from the perspective of Italy. So what happened in Italy and how society responded in Italy. It also sparked the conversation about like the climate crisis and climate change more in general, which up until that point was something more, I would say, it was not really a conversation topic. It was mostly like set aside and just turned, let's say, nobody was talking about it. So I'm just thinking, what do you think about this kind of strategies? If it's something that ultimately is good in the sense that it helps the conversation move on, or if it can be counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Just shortly, I mean, I don't know what Extinction Rebellion like a main focus in the strategy. It's hard to say because I mean, media relations or media campaigns, they have their focus. They might have very different goals. I mean, if Extinction Rebellion or other radical activists have their as a main goal like attracting attention to the issue of climate change, and they don't really care whether it's positive or negative, they just need other people to talk about it, through radical actions because they feel like maybe that other things are not working anymore, that other things are, you know, cannot provoke the reaction from audience, and then they hope radical action can provoke this reaction from audience. Then why not? I mean, if you do the media campaign and you think that you don't really care whether positive or negative reaction, you just need a reaction and you just need people to talk on a certain issue, and it doesn't matter how and it doesn't matter what, but just like to attract their attention by most radical way, then it might work. I mean, it really depends on your goal, how you understand it. I mean, we never really, I mean, the campaigns that I did in my life for last 35 years, we've never been in a situation where it would be not important whether it's good or bad publicity. I mean, we always need good publicity. But I mean, like, there are different groups, different strategies, different ideas. I mean, really, every campaign, every action, you know, every group has its own ideas, doing their own things, and I mean, that's up to them.
Hey, thank you. We have another hand. Adriano, please.
Hello, hi, and sorry for having the camera off until now. I'm feeling quite bad, but I really wanted to join this. And hi, Vladimir. We were in contact just recently, and thank you for joining us. Then also in Moldova for the spring school that we're launching in May, and also hi to Alma. We know each other from very many years. And I mean, I just have a question at this point because of what Eleonora said, and basically, Vladimir, you are a very prominent activist, and you became a prominent activist historically in dealing with environmental activism in a context of illiberal democracy in Russia. And fast forward to what Eleonora was mentioning. I mean, I'm also a fellow Italian, and when I was a kid, people that were careful of the environment, they were looked at like weirdos, and people were laughing at them. And 30 years later, people are throwing rocks at them, are throwing stones at them. So just to simplify, considering how the shrinking space for activism is happening so rapidly, even in established democracies like Italy, where new legislations are being implemented really on a weekly basis to kind of try to counter the mobilization of youngsters, especially. Would you have imagined 30 years ago that this would have escalated so quickly to the extent that we are criminalizing in established democracy, we're criminalizing minors for having peaceful protest, or really it went out of control?
I mean, I don't think it went out of control that much, but I mean, there is certainly a lot of negative things happening, and I don't think we could imagine something like that 30 years ago. I mean, 30 years ago, we couldn't imagine internet the way it is today. And there are many interesting ideas about, well, whether internet actually helping or not, you know, for democracy, for human rights, for, I mean, other things and environmental things. And I mean, I think it's bad to criminalize activists because, I mean, activists are people who might have very interesting ideas and unusual ideas, but still they fighting for something good, and they trying to bring some important message to the media. And I think activists must be treated differently. I mean, should not be criminalized.
Thank you. Yeah, Christine, sorry, I don't know where is.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you for the valuable information that is shared with us. My question is is divided into two parts. The first one is how much are the campaigns and the activities for advocating for the ecological sphere and climate justice basically relevant since at this moment we're basically talking about the Russia's policy executed in the region. How are these campaigns and activities amid the war between Russia and Ukraine relevant and for doing? Because we know that the ecological sphere also suffers damage as a result of this conflict lasting over 2 years. And the second part is like in simple words, are the resources of the activists in such situations, in your opinion as an expert, directed to a relatively informative spot? So, and if they are, how are they conducted, these campaigns? So the other core problems, for example, human losses, basically, do not get shadowed. Thank you.
It is very difficult question, and because I think when there is a war going on, obviously, environmental campaigns or in general rhetorics on environmental losses is definitely a very low priority. I mean, when people shooting each other at war, I mean, obviously the society and a big part of activists as well are focused pretty much on the human lives. I mean, I think it doesn't really matter what kind of activist you were before, but when there is a war going on, you just want to stop it. And I mean, the human rights, of course, as much as possible should be priority. But like talking about environmental consequences and everything, well, from my point of view, we will definitely do it later, but right now it's not an issue to really be focused on. I mean, we have to do everything we can to stop the war and then think about like different issues and calculate consequences and, think what's gonna be next. But I mean, and by the way, one thing I know, I'm always saying everywhere I speak, but I didn't, and I will say it now, I'm pro-peace. I think war should be stopped immediately, and I think Russian troops should withdraw from Ukraine and let them live in democratic life.
Thank you, Vladimir. Maybe last question if we have. No? So I think that's all for today, and I want to thank Vladimir again and Alma for your participation and for the discussion. I think it was very interesting, and I enjoyed it very much. And it's, as I said at the beginning, that's only the first of our seminars. We will have 3 more. Next one is 25th of April with LGBT activists from Uganda. So if you are interested, I have sent you the agenda. It's an invitation email. And if you have any questions, ask me and sign up. So thank you very much.